Hey, welcome to Hot Route Takes. Today we're doing our recap of Week 2 of the NFL. Lots of good games today, especially in the 1 o'clock slate. We're going to work our way through here, starting with a Thursday night game, which was a pretty decent one. Vikings and Eagles coming through. Who wants to start us off?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. For the listeners, as you probably can tell from my voice, still under the weather, so I'll try to power my way through one more podcast, and hopefully we're back to 100%. But yeah, we'll start with this one. Philly ended up taking the 34-28 win. We all predicted Philly to win this game, albeit I think we all expected a bigger margin of victory. And really, even in the first half, and as I was watching this game, Minnesota was kind of outplaying Philadelphia throughout this half. The turnovers at bad times were costing them, and anytime they got any sort of momentum, someone seemed to cough the ball up or a big play. The fumble through the back of the end zone for Justin Jefferson for a touchback was a huge momentum shift in that game. So it was a bad loss for Minnesota, but they played well. If they can establish any run game, which Madison is having a tough time these first 2 weeks, I think they'll be a decent team. That said, I still think Philadelphia is roughing or figuring out this offense, this season's version of it, and I think it took a step in the right direction with Swift's impact on this football game. He had a big night,
Yep.
and that was the biggest takeaway for Philadelphia in my eyes.
My big thing is like Chase was saying, the Vikings have to get some type of running game. And honestly, this is a primetime game. People see this and think Kirk Cousins was the cause of this, which is false. I mean, Kirk Cousins played probably the best game he's probably played on primetime. The Vikings, to me, ultimately lost this game because they had the 4 fumbles. I mean, if they didn't fumble the ball, I think this game looked totally different. The Eagles, I think we've seen in these first 2 weeks, kind of getting slow, but eventually they got that running game going. But at the beginning of the game, it looked like it was non-existent, like we seen in Week 1. But that's where my big concern is with the Eagles, just what is going on with the passing game. The rushing game, I'm not that upset or scared of just because the offensive line is still there. So my big thing is what Jalen Hurts is going to be in these next couple of weeks. And then the Vikings, I just think, this is what's going to be their story, I think, all year. It's just how good is their defense going to play to keep them in games? Ultimately, can they even run the ball, or is it just going to be a pass-heavy offense, which I know all three of us has already came out and said that's what we believe this team's going to be. But to win games like this, they're going to have to be able to run the ball and not turn over.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I went with Philly in this game as well, and I really thought it was going to be a lot more of a blowout, but the Vikings really should have won this game, like you guys said. I think Kirk Cousins played a heck of a game, Justin Jefferson being Justin Jefferson, but really what I saw out of this football game was Jalen Hurts in this passing game are trying to force stuff, and it's just not there for him. Man, the way the Vikings defense played this game, not putting like hardly anyone in the box, trying to force them to make mistakes through the air. Brian Flores, I don't really understand it because they were able to just run for 250 yards pretty easily, it looked like. DeAndre Swift had a career night, 175 yards rushing and a touchdown, and overall almost 260 yards rushing as a team, which is phenomenal. But like I said, the passing game looked a little rusty, but the running game was good enough for them to kind of pull this one out. So moving on to the next one, there's a heck of a good football game here. The Green Bay Packers and Atlanta Falcons. What you guys got?
Yeah, I believe I picked Green Bay in this one, so I missed, swung and missed. But this was one of the better football games in the 1 o'clock window. Green Bay getting out to that 24-12 lead, and ultimately coughing up Atlanta pulling a reverse Atlanta and coming back and winning this football game. I thought it was competitive, and both sides look great. The young quarterbacks are taking steps. I think Desmond Ritter pushed the ball a little better in the second half,
He did.
especially, and got his weapons involved. Drake London, 6 catches for 67 yards. I want to see more of that with this offense. And Bijan, Brian was on it in this preseason, and he is that dude. 19 carries for 124 yards, as well as 4 catches for 48. He's a focal point of the offense this early get go, and he's a big reason they're 2-0.
Yep.
Yeah, my big thing, I picked Green Bay to win this, and I just think ultimately it came down to, the third downs conversions. They just could get them. I think that kind of, worries me with Jordan Love. I mean, he was 14 for 25 today. I think some of the big throws he kind of missed still. But I think, it's still a young team, young wide receivers, kind of what we seen last year with Aaron. I think some of them just going to have to get on the same page still. And we also got to think this was A.J. Dillon, their leading back. I think if Jones is there, this could be a definitely different game. But on the Falcons side, I mean, to me, they sneaked this game out, honestly. I just think Desmond Ritter, when it's shown that he has to pass, this team's going to be in some close games. That's what it's going to have to come down to is Desmond Ritter. But, I mean, he sneaked this one by. He made some big runs this game. I think that's a big thing for them to get him maybe in the running game. So, I mean, that was a great thing for them to do with him. That was something he did back in college, was run some read options and stuff, which they did today. But both these defenses surprised me, but it's also, like y'all said, some young quarterbacks, mistakes were made. So I'm looking more towards the future of both of these teams to kind of see what their defenses really are against more upper quarterback play.
Yeah, I thought both of these teams actually played really well. Watching it throughout, Jordan Love was finding open guys and he was hitting them, but he only had 150 yards on the day. But I thought he played pretty clean football. Didn't make a whole lot of mistakes, and really there wasn't a whole lot there. I think Green Bay is really missing Christian Watson right now in the pass game, but I do think going forward this offense will continue to evolve and get better. They kind of struggled a little bit on the ground today without Aaron Jones, so having him would have been a huge bonus for this rushing attack and passing game. But not just taking anything away from Atlanta, man. Their defense played pretty well. Desmond Ritter actually impressed me a little bit today. He was pushing the ball down the field in some tight windows, giving Drake London opportunities to go up and get the football, and he did it. I think Drake London looked pretty good today. Finished the day with 6 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. But really what this came down to is the Falcons ran the rock down their throat. Bijan Robinson, 124 yards. Tyler Algier topped 50 yards on top of that, and then 40 yards for Desmond Ritter. And he had a bunch of clutch third down conversions on the ground, and one was for a touchdown. And get this, the longest rush of the day was only 19 yards, and they just pounded it all day.
Yeah.
And so I'm impressed by both these two teams. I think they'll have pretty good seasons. But moving on to the next football game here, we got the Baltimore Ravens, Chase's team, and the Cincinnati Bengals. How you feeling, Chase, after a nice 2-0 start to the season?
Well, I mean, the reverse jinx worked perfectly, just as I expected. Obviously, kidding here. We all picked the Bengals in this game, and I thought Baltimore being down 2 offensive linemen, still being without Marlon Humphrey in the secondary, it spelled trouble for a ticked off Cincinnati team. But we really just played complete, sound, complementary football the whole day, and that just speaks to how well-rounded this roster is. I thought the passing game took another step. Lamar had a better week 2. He accounted for 291 yards total, 237 through the air. And the wide receivers, I think the entire room showed what an upgrade they have become this offseason, because last week it was the Zay Flowers show, and any given week it can be someone different. This week, Nelson Aguilar led the team in receptions after OBJ went down in the first half with an ankle injury. He looks to be fine, nothing serious there. But yeah, just having the ability to have other guys able to step up and take a role and lead this team and have someone for Lamar to trust besides Mark Andrews was huge. And just when Cincinnati finally stopped trying to push the ball so deep down the field and took those nice 15-yard intermediate chunk plays, and they were finally moving the ball, Lamar and the offense didn't blink. They kept staying aggressive and through the air and held a comfortable 2-possession lead, and ultimately got that last punctuating first down on the ground to ice and milk that clock out and take home the road victory, which is huge in this division.
Sure.
Yeah, no, the biggest thing I took away from this game is, like Chase said, you would think they'd get to Lamar, and they didn't even have a sack this whole game. And I think that was a big key to, somehow keep Lamar upright. But the only negative thing on the Baltimore side is, Lamar having to run, but which, I mean, if the safeties were playing back, I mean, Lamar's going to take it. And I think that was smart for him. But just, for me, I just think it is scary seeing Lamar run. Granted, I mean, if it's going to be an automatic first down, I mean, he's got to do it. And I think Mark Andrews, you've seen on some big third down plays. That's, I mean, Lamar Jackson's guy. And that was, I mean, Cincinnati had one job, and it's, he's going to Mark Andrews, and they couldn't stop it. Then on the Cincinnati side, kind of like what I said last week, I mean, Joe Burrow came off the field sometimes hopping, limping again, massaging his own leg again on the sidelines. So just, a little concern still for me on what Joe Burrow's health really is. I think, the last thing I will say that I liked out of Baltimore is Jamar Chase was missing this game. I mean, I don't know how they did it, but they had this guy locked up, and T. Higgins didn't have a choice but to have a catch in this game. So I think out of the Baltimore side, I think that's a big thing. I mean, in the past, we've seen Jamar Chase kind of give them nightmares. And maybe, just maybe, I know we'll see this game one more time this year. Maybe they found an answer behind the Jamar Chase. But, I mean, I wouldn't go that far just yet. Gee, I mean, that's a dominant wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a quiet game for Jamar Chase, but really, it's been a rough start here for the Bengals offense. It's been really out of sync. It's just not been good. But that's, not to diminish anything Baltimore did today. Defense looked good. I did not watch this game. I'm, looking at the box score right now and hearing what Chase said. I watched 3 different games. The 1 o'clock slate, man. Whew. Lots of really good games. But based on what I'm seeing, it looks like Lamar Jackson's getting some things going through the air from several different receiving targets. It's not just funneling through Mark Andrews, which has been what it has been in the past. Like Chase said, Nelson Aguilar had a pretty nice day, as well as Zay Flowers. Pretty even distribution of targets throughout the game, which is a good thing to see for a passing offense. And then for Lamar Jackson, man, on the ground, you can't not run it if you're Lamar Jackson. That's got to be a part of your offense, and I'm glad to see them incorporating it and looking like they're trying to marry the right amount of run and pass in this offense, and it's going to be pretty good going forward. So I like what I see here from Baltimore. Moving on to the next game, a rough one, I would say. I'm sorry, Christian, the Chargers and Tennessee Titans. Christian, would you want to lead off on this one, man? Tell us what you think.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, you could look at the box score without watching this game. Granted, I watched the game very closely, but just, I mean, 2 for 14 on third down conversions. And, I mean, the one guy I think we did miss was Austin Eckler. I mean, we only had 61 rushing yards total, and we seen what we did week 1 against Miami, and that just totally disappeared with Austin Eckler gone. So that was my big thing. And then, last week or last episode, I talked about Ryan Tannehill would give us a ball maybe to go in our favor. And, I mean, Ryan Tannehill played probably the best game he's played in his career in a long time. I mean, he was 20 for 24, no turnovers. And then, I mean, the only thing that scares me, I mean, Derrick Henry didn't average a lot, which is the pro, but just when we needed to stop the run and we knew they were running, we couldn't stop it. And then to me, the biggest play of the game was in overtime. It's 3rd and 10. We know what we're doing, supposedly. I mean, we come out, a dude's running across Herbert to go in motion, and then no one knew the play. I mean, Mike Williams stood there in his spot, didn't know what was going on, overthrew Keenan Allen that didn't run all the way down the field, which we thought he was doing, I guess, and Herbert thought he was doing. So to me, I understand the offense isn't 100% yet, so that's my big concern still, but at least Joey Bosa did show up this game. He got to the quarterback. I mean, at least our pass rush is there, but just – and then the last thing I'll say for the Chargers, I just don't understand how the deep ball is just killing us this year. I mean, definitely against this team out of all teams, and it wasn't DeAndre Hopkins on the receiving end of the deep ball. So, I mean, just a lot of questions. I mean, honestly, at this point, I may hate to say it, but I want the head coach gone. Like, as a Chargers fan, I'd be happy if he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, just looking, obviously my 1 o'clock attention was primarily put on the Ravens game. But what I saw from this and just looking at the box score, this seems like the most Tennessee win there could be and the most Chargers loss there could be. Like, Chargers obviously moving the ball here. Justin Herbert, a pretty efficient day through the air, racking up the yards. Keenan Allen, another big day, multiple touchdown catches. Yes, they were missing the ground game, but this was very reminiscent of Chargers games of old where they couldn't really get a ground attack, but still found a way to move the ball because of Herbert's dynamic arm. But opposite side, how is this defense getting cooked up by Ryan Tannehill? Obviously, that's got to be frustrating to watch from Christian's point of view. When you're not getting back or getting at the quarterback and getting pressure there, it's like the corners aren't living up to what they're being paid to do. especially against a receiving core like this. They should be winning their one-on-one matchups more frequently, so that's worrisome for me. I can understand getting beat by Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and company, but getting beat by Ryan Tannehill in this receiving room is a different story. So I got to see some improvement in the secondary for LA. And as Christian said, if it doesn't come in a hurry, a team with this much expectations, that head coach will be on the hot seat very, very quickly.
Yeah, I thought the big thing that I took away from this is that they did rack up 140 yards rushing on the day, and basically what that allowed them to do, even if it was only 3.2 yards per carry for Derrick Henry, Tajay Spears came in, was a nice second back here, change of pace back, and had himself a pretty nice complimentary day with 8 rushes for 49 yards. That's 6.1 yards a pop, and it came with I'm pretty sure, pretty clutch run in overtime of 22 yards. But allowing Tennessee to have a running game like that opens the game up for them to have their script to win a game. They need that running game so Ryan Tannehill can lean on it and play off of it. And that's what you saw here today. Ryan Tannehill was in his comfort zone. He was able to come off of the play action and throw the ball down the field. And that is what Ryan Tannehill has always been. And he had a Ryan Tannehill day today. And he has it in this system. It only works when the running game's there. He can lean on it. He's got his weapons down the field. And, it happened. And I kind of was worried about the Chargers' rushing defense. They looked good up against Miami, but it kind of showed up today. But,
and just to quickly point out, we did all pick Cincinnati, and I believe we all picked LA in this game. So just shows you in NFL. You can think you know stuff week to week and how teams match up, but, it's the way it goes. So
for sure. So moving on to the next football game, the Chicago Bears versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sheesh.
I picked Tampa, baby.
Yeah.
Woo!
Who had? Yeah, I was about to say who. No one in this room, by show of hands, will ever raise their hand at admitting they had Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 2-0 to start this season. Albeit, if you're facing Minnesota and Chicago, two NFC North teams, we don't greatly have high expectations for, whatever. But yeah, credit to Baker Mayfield and company for getting the job done, man. This home opener, they looked good. And really, I'm not going to touch a lot on them because I just think they played clean football. Baker had a day. I'm going to go more so on the side of the Bears, who I picked to win this game. We really might have got too quick. I'm not bearing him now, but we really might have jumped too quick on Justin Fields. Today, you could really see he has moments to where he's holding on to the football and he's not reading through his progressions quick enough. Like, I get that when you only have a guy like DJ Moore on the outside to really make plays for you, how that can be difficult. DJ Moore had 6 catches for 104 yards, so a good day for him. But he's got to get off the other reads quicker and use his athleticism. He got sacked too many times, 6 times for someone that athletic. That shouldn't be happening. Take the Lamar approach, man. If you ain't got outside your one trustworthy pass catcher, if he's not open, make a quick other read and then take off. Use your athleticism. Justin Fields has it. He don't have to beat teams with just his arm. He can do it on both dynamics of his game. So I really need to see more from him to get behind that hype and momentum he had built at the end of last season.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I'm going to go on the Tampa side since, I did pick them. I just kind of, like I said last week when I made this pick, is kind of what Chase just said. We kind of jumped on the Chicago train, I think, too soon. They did have the number 1 pick, traded out of it, but I'm not going to go back down that rabbit hole. But just on the Tampa Bay side, I mean, Baker had moments, I think it was 3 plays where they had him. I mean, deads to rights, and somehow Baker come out of it, make a big play. And, I mean, Mike Evans, man, they should have signed him. If anything, that contract that he wants now is just getting bigger. But I think, to me, Baker Mayfield next week is his true test. I mean, they're playing the Eagles. This is where we'll see where this Tampa Bay team is. But right now, I am very kind of liking what I see out of Tampa Bay. I mean, out of all this team in their division, I understand 2 of these games have been against weaker teams. But right now, they're, to me, the favorite right now just after these 2 weeks to win that division just because their defense is there. Veteran defense, I think we kind of slept on them. All 3 of us did. I mean, we were all low. I think everybody was on this team. But I think, like I said in the offseason, this is Baker Mayfield best wide receiver like he's had in his whole career at this point. And with this duo and Mike Evans and Godwin, this is kind of what he ran at Oklahoma is what I'm getting at. I mean, they're letting Mike Evans run deep and just letting Baker throw it up to him. And I mean, today showed that, I mean, Mike Evans is ready for that role and he's happy to be in that role. So, and they kind of had a good running game. And then, like I said, this offense line that's been talked down to being not that good. Granted, terrible Bears team, but Baker didn't get sacked once. Now, I think a lot of quarterbacks, I mean, a lot of the wins we looked at today, a lot of the quarterbacks don't get sacked. They're going to win games.
Yeah, I think this isn't so much in my opinion at least, good on Tampa Bay as is an indictment of how bad the Chicago Bears have been. They've been really bad, and Justin Fields deserves a lot of that blame, but it's not just him, man. This is the whole team. I just am not a believer in Chase Claypool. Where was Darnell Mooney today? Was he hurt? He didn't even get a target otherwise. I mean, that's horrible, you know? And so I think they're still filling out this offense. It's going to take a minute to Justin Fields is clearly not where he needs to be as a passer and reading the field and knowing where to go with football. It was pretty ugly. And then I still think this Tampa Bay, they're fool's gold, man. I'm not ready to buy in at all. I just don't believe in the two teams they played. It's defenses. Who'd they play week one? Was it Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Yeah, the Vikings.
Minnesota, yeah. Their defense is trash. Chicago's defense is trash. Let's see a real defense before I put anything behind Baker. That's just where I'm at with it. But I was kind of impressed to see them have a balance on offense today. They were able to run the ball a little bit and pass the ball, and that surprised me. I thought they were going to be strictly living off Baker's arm this year. So nice to see that. We'll see, though, going forward. I'm not a believer just quite yet. And I'm also not ready to press sell on Justin Fields yet. But moving on to the next game, which was a doozy, the Buffalo Bills and the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I think we all had Buffalo in this one, rightfully so. I spoke last week after the Aaron Rodgers injury on this preview pod and the Miami win, big offensive showing they had, and how bad Buffalo's offense looked Monday night in that loss to the Zach Wilson-led Jets. I thought Miami established themselves as the AFC East favorite. That kind of felt wrong to say after 1 week, and it showed this week to me because Buffalo, when they're clicking, this offense and team is still a really good football team. So I think it's really a two-horse race for this division when you have this Buffalo squad that showed up today and the 38-10 win over Vegas. Josh Allen playing one of his cleanest games in a while, 31-37 for 274, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Very good sign for him, cutting out those turnovers. He admitted it after the Monday night presser last week. That's something he's paying attention to. He knows he's got to cut down. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a couple things paired with him having such a good day. One is the establishment of a solid run game. James Cook, 17 carries for 123 yards. Great production on the volume he was getting. And then Gabe Davis, when he has big days, this offense has big days. 6 catches for 92 and a touchdown. So, yeah, I don't think those two things are a coincidence that it correlates with this Josh Allen type performance. Those things partner with that. He usually plays pretty good football, and I think Buffalo will get more of that throughout the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm going to go on the Raiders side. I think Brian, I have a good bit more on Buffalo. So just my thing is Buffalo ultimately did what they needed to for the Raiders side of the ball. I mean, Jimmy G, supposed to be the game manager, had the 2 interceptions. That's just a setback. Then, of course, ultimately their biggest weapon other than Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, which Buffalo deleted from this game. I mean, the guy had 9 carries for negative 2 yards. Oh, I mean, to me, and that's the bread and butter to beat this Raiders team. You get Josh Jacobs to not have a good day, you're going to be probably blowing this team out more than likely. So just on the Raiders side, I mean, kind of what we all expected. The defense is not there yet, other than defensive line has some guys, but Buffalo just came out hot after a bad week that, a lot of teams definitely, or not teams, but people think they should have beat that Jets team without an Aaron. So, this was really just Josh Allen with a chip on his shoulder to prove a point and say, hey, last week was a fluke. Week 1, this is what this season's going to be for us.
Yeah, I think my ultimate takeaway after a game like this, it was dominated, by the way, with the final score 38-10 Buffalo's way. I think Buffalo just destroyed them in the trenches, man, up front on the offensive line and their front 7. Like Christian said, they just took Josh Jacobs out of this football game. And even other than that, the player with the most rushing yards on the Raiders was a receiver, Trey Tucker. I'm not even sure who that is, and he had 34 rushing yards. So
Rookie.
that's bizarre. Zamir White had 4 carries for 22 yards, and Josh Jacobs finished the game with -2 rushing yards, averaging -0.2 yards per carry, which is just utterly bizarre, dude. So they pretty much had to live off Jimmy G's arm, and that's just never going to be a way to win a football game, in my opinion. And even on the other side of the ball, they just got the run game going. Josh Allen looked like himself again, completing 31 for 37. Man, incredibly efficient. So big win for Buffalo, to be expected, honestly, against the Raiders team. I don't have very much expectations for. But moving on to the next one, very good game. Seattle over Detroit, 37-31 in overtime. What you guys got?
Yeah, I mean, if we've learned anything these last 2 football seasons, is that these 2 teams match up very evenly, and these 2 teams will give you one of the better football games of the season. Just entertainment all throughout. And I just want to read off some team stats from each side to show you how evenly matched these 2 teams are. 393 total yards for Seattle, 418 for Detroit, 311 through the air for Seattle, 316 for Detroit, 82 on the ground for Seattle, 102 for Detroit. Third down, Seattle was 5 of 11, Detroit 6 of 11. Like, you don't get much more even than what these 2 teams are drawing up. Really, what ultimately it came down to, Detroit got behind by 10 points in the fourth thanks to a big interception return from Seattle's Trey Brown, a 40-yard pick six. That snapped Jared Goff's consecutive passes attempt streak without an interception. I believe he was closing in on the NFL record before that play in the fourth quarter. So that really flipped this game. Credit to Jared Goff and company for rallying and getting that game into overtime. But Geno Smith and company, they fought, stayed sound the whole game, and ultimately he found Tyler Lockett to walk off this one. Pretty much, I think, poetry for this series because the game was so close and so evenly matched last year. Ultimately, Detroit won that one, I believe. So I think it's only right that Seattle has another close contest, and this time they come the victor because it just speaks to how close these 2 football teams are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The streak that you're talking about, Chase, is Aaron at 1 in 2018 at 402, Tom Brady in 2022 with Tampa at 399, then Jared Goff last year in this season at 383. So who's that third? But like I said, Jared Goff, a guy that was in the past, when he was with the Rams, very turnovers, what was a big problem. And he's kind of killed that narrative with the Lions. But, my big takeaway from this game is, when David Montgomery went out, Jamar Gibbs still didn't become the number 1 guy. So that's a big question mark for me. They submit the high draft pick. I mean, we had a guy come in, number 13, Greg Reynolds, I believe how you say his name. So it's a big question mark for me. Just what is Jamar Gibbs' role? You wasted a high draft pick that it looks like after 2 weeks. Granted, I don't want to go too far down that hole either, but just to me, I'm not going to go too far to Chase hit a lot of good stats. Just to me, I think ultimately the game came down to who had the ball last. I think if Detroit had the ball last, easily could be the other way. There was one play that Geno had. It was in the fourth quarter where I don't know if it was a design run, miscue. I mean, he ran backwards for a good solid 15, 20 yards and got tackled on like the 3 or 4 yard line. So, I mean, that's kind of a big scare just for Geno. But during this game, he's also shown that, he's still got somewhat he had last year left, but just he's had some moments this season that kind of gets a red flag right now that what are you really going to get out of Geno? But I think this is a good Seattle win, something they could build upon, definitely after a hard week 1.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say here. I think you guys pretty much touched on it all. What I will say is this kind of looks bad for Detroit with the whole DeAndre Swift trading him to turn around and use the 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs when I think Swift was clearly a very capable player. It's just a matter of him staying on the field. And I think he might end up running into some, usage issues with Jahmyr Gibbs that you had with DeAndre Swift. They didn't properly utilize Swift in Detroit, and I'm seeing some of a similar situation going on here with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jamal Williams got a lot more carries than I thought he should have last year when Swift was healthy, and it looks like David Montgomery's kind of taking those carries from Jahmyr Gibbs this time around. And David Montgomery did exit the game. Hopefully he's all right. But I will touch on Seattle a bit here. Geno, man, he had himself a day, racking up 328 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers on the day, and 32 of 41 passing, 75%. So really good job by Geno Smith today. They couldn't get a whole lot going on the ground. So nice job by Seattle here. Tough win in a close football game. But continuing on here to probably the most highly anticipated matchup of the weekend, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kansas City pulled it out with the score 17-9.
Yeah. Obviously, the 1 o'clock games I couldn't pay as much attention to, but when I had Red Zone on my iPad, whenever I wasn't looking at the Baltimore game, I expected to look down and see this one, and I just didn't. And that kind of surprised me how often these offenses fell flat this game. I thought the comeback of Travis Kelce would help spur the Chiefs, and I thought Jacksonville has established themselves as a good team, but I think we forget about the comeback of Chris Jones, and that really neutralized this Jacksonville run game. And then Kansas City did a heck of a job on Calvin Ridley. 2 catches for 32 yards on 8 targets. That's a heck of a job against their dynamic player. Although Christian Kirk, they kind of lived with him beating them on the back end. But ultimately, they weren't putting the ball in the end zone. And Kansas City did enough to win this football game due to Patrick Mahomes' innovation, spreading the football around. He had a lot of different targets on this afternoon. And when the big third down happened and a play mattered, he scrambled and found Sky Moore for a big play to really ice this game away. So 2 good football teams. I expected to see more points. I did pick Kansas City to win. I just expected to see more points, like I said. I think these 2 teams match up again in the playoffs. I would not expect the same outcome as far as points scored. I expect both of these offenses to kind of get things rolling these next few weeks.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, my big thing with the whole offense thing, at least on the KC side, we've seen today that they're still having to get the ball to a lot of people. There's not that one guy really taking over. Granted, I think Travis Kelce, once he does get healthy to 100%, that's going to be the guy. But until then, I mean, all their guys had 3 to 4 to 5 catches in any wide receiver they had on the roster seems like he got in and at least got a touch. So I think that may be a big concern on the KC side going into next week. But I mean, this was a game that we figured would be close, just not the way we pictured it. And then they couldn't get the run going until it was really all up to Trevor Lawrence. And I think KC knew that, and it just wasn't the greatest showing of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, 22 for 41, only 216. Didn't have no turnovers. That's the bright side. But also I look at that, didn't watch the game close enough. I have to go back and watch it. Did he not take the deep shot to even try to take over and kind of win this game for them is my only question. And then on the Chiefs side, it's just Patrick Mahomes did have the 1 turnover. I just don't know after seeing what happened in week 1, was it his fault or wide receivers? Another one I need to go back and kind of look and see what happened there. But, I mean, I think right now I think the Chiefs defense is kind of leading this team to victories right now, which a lot of people did not expect this year.
Yeah, this was a very interesting game, guys. I watched this one pretty thorough, and what I would say is this was a game of inches all the way through. Jacksonville's offense had 3 very close touchdowns. Very close. I put one foot in, the other one just barely touches the white line 3 times, and then Jacksonville fans have to be sick to their stomach. They should have won this game. They had several plays they just left out and there on the field. Kansas City did a great job of disrupting Trevor Lawrence's rhythm, but really I thought, man, Trevor Lawrence just did not play well in this football game. He missed open guys. He was just a tick off here, tick off there. He did make some plays happen on the ground, but I thought Kansas City's defense just really played well in this football game, made it hard on Trevor Lawrence and made him make these tough throws under duress all game. And Trevor Lawrence just didn't really show up in this football game. He's not been Trevor Lawrence that we've seen over the last several weeks going back to last season. But then on the offensive side of the ball for Kansas City, I thought they played well. This Jacksonville defense, man, they're legit. I'm going to say that right now. I saw enough in this game. man, they did a very good job keeping Kelsey under wraps and just being swarming all over the football. Pass rush is making Mahomes uncomfortable. He's getting out the pocket. He only got sacked one time today, but Patrick Mahomes. They moved him off his spot. He was making plays down the field. He was just Patrick Mahomes, but they were able to only allow 17 points in this football game with Patrick Mahomes going 29 to 41 for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns. They did get a pick on the day, which greatly helped, but really, I was surprised with these two teams' defenses, and I was a little let down by Trevor Lawrence. But I've seen enough in Trevor Lawrence. I expect him to bounce back going forward. However, moving on to the next one, which was a pretty exciting game for me, just watching these two rookie quarterbacks in Houston and Indianapolis Colts. The Colts won the game with a score of 31-20.
Yeah. One we were looking forward to, even though it's not two great football teams in terms of roster and talent, but we wanted to see these two rookie quarterbacks duel it out. We have feelings on each of these guys and how they're going to project throughout the season. And I'm going to speak on the Texans side just because C.J. Stroud finished this game. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson did have to leave with a concussion. And I have a Texans fan who texted me a lot throughout this game. And what he was noticing was when C.J. Stroud has time, he was making a lot of good throws.
Yes.
This is a patchwork offensive line due to injuries right now, and it got beat a lot today. But when C.J. Stroud had time, he was dotting it up, and Nico Collins had a heck of a day. That's a huge development. I can't tell you how excited my friend that's a Texans fan is about the Nico Collins early season play so far. 7 catches for 146 yards. If him and Stroud develop this type of chemistry for the long haul, that's huge stuff for the Texans. They just need to clean up the defensive side of the ball, which I thought would be stronger coming into this year because of the talent they have. But no pass rush to speak of. Even when it was Gardner Minshew in there, they were getting picked apart. So it was a little disappointing for that side of the ball for me. But credit to the Colts and keeping their game plan intact no matter who was at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I'm talking on the Colts side too. I did pick the Colts to win this game, but Anthony Richardson, I don't know what his future is right now. They said it maybe he'll be good to go next week, maybe not in the concussion protocol. So that's a big, big guy. Kind of scares you that he's getting that injury already, how early it is. But I will say, I wonder what this score would have been with him in this game because he was having a field day. I mean, running, passing, he was making it happen. And I will say, Zach Moss did not expect that of anybody in that running back room. This got to come back from a broken arm and lead the way with 18 carries for 88 yards, averaging almost 5 yards. So if he can continue that, I think that's big for this Colts team. And then Michael Pittman keeps what he's doing. But I think the Colts, man, like I said, this defense, I expected to play better, but just not up to this level. I think a lot of these yards that C.J. Stroud got to, I mean, it's when they got to a big lead. Then Gardner Minshew came in. They couldn't really do much on offense. And the defense was out there a lot. And that kind of where C.J. Stroud got a good bit of his yards, not trying to take anything away from him because, like Chase said, I mean, I tuned on and watched this game a good little bit just because I was excited to see Anthony Richardson. But when C.J. Stroud doesn't have time, I mean, and it seems like he doesn't have time a lot. I mean, they're getting back there quick, and he's having to move around and make something happen. So, I mean, just ready to see with a healthy offensive line, maybe in this matchup later down the season when they play each other again, and a healthy Anthony Richardson, what this game will be. But right now, the Colts defense is kind of carrying this team as long as, Anthony Richardson can stay healthy. We really won't know what this offense is.
Yeah. I'll go kind of along the lines you guys did. Houston, C.J. Stroud carried this team, and everything else was pretty bad. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. Dameon Pierce, 15 carries, 31 yards, averaging 2 yards an attempt. Evan Singletary's 4 rushes, 14 yards. Just nothing on the ground. And C.J. Stroud basically he knew he was going to drop back, and he couldn't get protected. He got sacked 6 times today, but still ended up finishing with 384 yards passing. And if you're a Texans fan, that's extremely promising, seeing that development and seeing the success game through the air, especially not having limited weapons here in Houston. So that is promising. But then on the Colts side of things, I thought Anthony Richardson looked really good when he was in. Kind of had like a Tua-esque concussion there, so maybe he needs to brush up on some jiu-jitsu or something. It's just an awkward landing. I think he'll be fine. He'll come back this year. But I thought he looked pretty good overall. But scrappy game. Really, Indianapolis dominated up front on both sides of football in this game. So, anyways, moving on to the next one. The first game of the 4 o'clock slate. I did not watch this one, but San Francisco beat the Rams to score 30-23.
Yeah, I was actually really anticipating this one in the late window, maybe my most anticipated one because uh, what I've said and how my feelings are on San Fran as a team. I have so much question around LA and what that performance was last week. And I got to say, man, Matt Stafford looks inspired. This team looks inspired. And gosh, if you hadn't bought your Puka Nakua stock yet, you need to get on it because 20 targets, 15 catches. He
Sheesh.
set the NFL record for number of reception in your first 2 career games. Like, when and if Cooper Kupp comes back, obviously that'll cut back a little, but make no doubt about it, Matt Stafford's found himself a guy he has a serious connection with, and he's putting up numbers. I mean, that 15 for a buck 47 against this defense, that speaks to what type of receiver he is looking to be in his rookie year. But I want to harp on more of San Fran and what a complete team I think they are because I think Brock Purdy missed quite a few throws today, especially Brandon Ayuk got banged up pretty early, and you could tell he was hobbling around the field. So he seems to be his favorite target, and Brock missing to him downfield a lot really handicapped them and prevented them from scoring more. But the completeness of the football team, the ground attack, Christian McCaffrey over 100 once again, and the defense getting 2 interceptions just speaks to how this team can beat you in any way. And they moved to 2-0, and I think they're one of the best teams in football, if not the best in the NFC, especially how they've looked so far early on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the 49ers right now are probably leading the way in a lot of our minds at the best team. And then for the Rams side, Matthew Stafford did throw the 2 picks. And what's crazy to me about the 2 picks is just one of them, he hits Williams right in the shoulder, trying to let him lead him and turn him around, hits off the shoulder, interception. The other one was at Atwell. He thought he was going to stop, cut, and then run back up the field. He didn't. He overthrows it. Or no, that was the flag later in the game. My bad. Another one, though, it was a tip ball interception. So, my big thing is just the interceptions on that side wasn't really Matthew Stafford. Without those 2 picks, maybe change this game. But I will give, the Rams a big thing. Nick Bosa didn't exist in this game. They put him where he wasn't there. And I think that's a big thing for the Rams. A plus, this offensive line was very questionable going into this season. And the last thing I kind of want to beat the drum on is if Christian McCaffrey's healthy, this 49ers team is going to be a nightmare. And then, like y'all said, when Brandon Ayuk did leave and kind of shaken up, Deebo Samuel took over. I mean, in receiving and rushing, when in doubt, I think they're going Deebo. That's what this team's leaning towards, and that's kind of what he's been. So, I think as long as this team can stay healthy, it's going to be a rough team for people to kind of figure a way to beat. And as long as Brock Purdy, he did have a rough game today, but no interceptions. 49ers, ultimately, if they don't turn the ball over, I'm having them win a lot of games. As long as they don't commit any dumb errors, that's kind of what they want to play. So as long as they're playmakers, no errors, this is going to be a good season, I think, for this 49ers team.
Yeah, I thought, man, I'm shocked that the Rams were competitive in this football game. 2 weeks in a row, they've really exceeded my expectations. And Matthew Stafford, just being an absolute dog out there playing good football and carrying this offense. I did not watch. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time here. But Christian McCaffrey, keep doing what Christian McCaffrey does. And the 49ers just look like a well-oiled machine, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So good things for San Fran, and they pull out a good one here against a division rival. But moving on to next week, which is kind of a shocker of a game, the New York Giants and Arizona Cardinals. The Giants finish this one out 31-28.
Yeah, we all know we were texting our group chat here ready to come on and talk about how poor this Giants team is. And God, if they would have dropped this one to the Arizona Cardinals, getting behind 20-0 early in the first half, there wouldn't have been enough bad things to say about this team. But credit to the coaching staff and Daniel Jones for rallying and being a football team you're supposed to be. End of the day, a win is a win. Margin of victory doesn't matter in NFL as long as you're getting the win at the end of the day. But what we're seeing early on, especially the first half, huge concern from this Giants team. Defensively, they couldn't stop Josh Dobbs and company. Like, that's a huge question mark. And then late in the game, when Daniel Jones got going, and credit to him, hitting Jalen Hyatt on 2 deep balls, the worst thing that could ever happen to this team happened, and it looks like Saquon Barkley has a serious injury. He had to leave this game, slammed his helmet on the sideline. Looks like he knows something could be seriously wrong. We're going to keep an eye out for news. We're obviously hoping for the best, but this Giants offense minus Saquon in the future, I don't think many good things, because Daniel Jones played good today with a limited receiving core, but I think that's more of a testament to who Arizona is and what we know they are. And that's the only reason Daniel Jones had the ability to push this football. Put this up without Saquon against a better defense and a better secondary, I think this is going to be an ugly season. But again, credit to New York for pulling out the W. I will say that.
Yeah, I agree, with a lot of what Chase is saying. My big thing is without Barkley, this team's going to look very, not too good, I think, out there. To Daniel Jones, we've seen with Barkley and without, and he's a whole different guy with that guy on the field. But I will say on the Cardinal side, Joshua Dobbs, man, I will give him credit. He's trying everything possible to give Arizona a win, and it's just not happening for the guy. Same thing for James Conner. I mean, this is a guy who had 23 touches, 106 yards, average 4.6. And I think that's kind of sad looking on, the Giants side. I mean, this is a not that good Arizona team. A lot of people expect them to have the number 1 pick. So, I mean, just to me, I don't really know what to expect out of this Giants team right now. Do you see the week 1 with Dallas, a blowout, week 2 against this team? And then, I mean, looking to the future, not making my pick or anything right now, but they're playing the 49ers next week. So, and no Barkley, it's going to be, I mean, to right now, I think the Giants sneak out a win. Maybe should have lost this, honestly. Just Cardinals couldn't score another point really after a halfway point through the third quarter.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make my pick on that Giants San Francisco 49ers game. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Niners. You can't really get down 21-0 to the Arizona Cardinals, although they did come back. It just really sucks to end up at the end of the game, Saquon Barkley getting hurt. And I do agree with Chase. I think the presence of Barkley allows Daniel Jones to play the brand of football that he is playing on the ground. But going forward, man, it really is going to suck if Barkley does miss. He did have a X-ray after the game on his right ankle, but no results yet. Moving on to the Jets-Cowboys. In a blowout game, Cowboys taking this one with a score of 30-10.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what I expected. I think we all had Dallas in this one. Yeah, as we were mentioning previously, how bad the other New York team can look at without Saquon. I think this is how bad this Jets offense can look without Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson, albeit you're facing one of the better defenses today. He looks just like Zach Wilson looked last year, man. And I feel for the guy. Like, he's trying as hard as he is. He don't want to go out and with all this pressure and the weapons he has to work with, come out and play this poor. But it's just not there for him, man. And Dallas, they did what they're supposed to do. They showed why they're one of the better teams in the NFC. Dak, efficient day, only taking 1 sack, getting the ball out on time. Tony Pollard getting his heavy workload as always. And the defense just doing what they do, getting after Zach Wilson. They got 3 picks on him. I think that's the underrated part of this team. And when they're clicking like this, I think they have a chance to make a lot of noise in the NFC East this year. But yeah, it's sad. We were so hyped for the Jets this football season, man. Oh, I know Brian wasn't, but me and Christian were so hyped for this team, and they had been so bad for so long. And I think me and Christian really love Garrett Wilson and the player he is, and it hurts to see him just not have the opportunity. You thought he would have it this year with Aaron, and Aaron's not now going to be out the year, and it's sad to watch this offense work now, and I expect more of the same on a week-to-week basis with this team.
Goodness. The last little thing I meant to say about the New York game is the Giants wise is Daniel Jones' salary is $46 million, and then Joshua Dobbs is 1.5. Just sit that with it. Let Giants in Arizona think about that. Joshua Dobbs had a pretty good game, but anyway, on to this Jets game. I mean, kind of just planted my flag with this team with the whole Aaron thing, and just now at this point, with how bad this is looking, I don't care what New York is saying about Zach Wilson. I think you need to start looking at the free agency and, get somebody else in this building. I mean, the options aren't great. I think it's Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, get Matt Ryan out of the booth. But at this point, it can't look worse than what it's looking like at this point, just in my eyes. I mean, it looks pretty bad. And then, on the Cowboys side, I will give them credit. I mean, they're playing pretty good football. The offense looked like it's humming. And, that was my big question mark with this team, with Big Mike calling the plays now in Dallas. And this offense is looking pretty good. And then, a guy that I don't think get enough love really by any, big people. Kind of crazy because Dallas is one of those teams that you hear about, see about, but it's CeeDee Lamb. I mean, this guy, he needs some respect on his name. I think all these young wide receivers that get brought up, this guy's name somehow slips out nowhere. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, 11. Yeah, Chase gave him some love. Chase has gave him some love. But CeeDee Lamb today,
he made our top 10s, I think.
He just missed mine. I was about to say Brian was the only guy with CD in the top 10. I wanted to get him on, but credit to you, Brian. This guy's been balling since he came in the league. Yeah, he's baller, really good. Man.
Like, today he was 11 receptions, 143 yard, average 13, and this is a Jets defense that's supposed to be. Oh yeah, this is a Jets defense, at least in the corners, that are supposed to be great. I mean, top. But granted, like we just said, Zach Wilson is the quarterback on the other side. Defense is always out there. Kind of the same story we seen last year. So, just my biggest takeaway is the Jets have to bring somebody else in the building. Someone.
Yeah, this is not the game script that they could win with. Zach Wilson, 12 of 27 for 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, sacked 3 times as well. And there was not a single Jets player that had 10 rushing yards besides Zach Wilson. He had 36 yards rushing, Brees Hall 9 yards, Michael Carter 8 yards, Dalvin Cook 7 yards. That's pitiful, man. You're not going to win football games like that. And I understand the Dallas defense is good, but you had to have a different script to win this football game. You could not go in there in Dallas and lean on Zach Wilson to win this game for you through the air. And that's what they tried to do, and of course it was just ugly. So the Dolphins game has started. I'm going to move on to the next football game here, and it is the Commanders-Broncos. And I will say this game came down pretty close at the end. They converted a Hail Mary and just failed to finish the 2-point conversion. But Russell Wilson maybe looking like a little bit more like himself, or what? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't remember everyone's picks on this one, but I had Denver. But at the beginning of this game, I thought maybe this is the comeback Russell Wilson story we've been waiting on. 21-3 quick lead after just 5 minutes into the second quarter about. And Russ hit some deep passes. It looked like old Russ, and they were cooking some stuff up on that side of the ball. And then I don't know what happened. Washington just kind of flipped the switch, and they were moving the ball at will. Russell got a little careless, and the ground game wasn't doing much to help him. Brian Robinson had a day and was getting involved all over the place. Terry McLaurin had a touchdown catch. And we started recording this thing thinking Brian Robinson's last touchdown really put the game at hand, and we were good to record. And lo and behold, we get on here and we see Denver converts a Hail Mary and has a chance to tie this and send it in overtime, and they missed that attempt. So I'm going to have to go back and watch this last few minutes and see what played out there. But overall, all the hype and the hope for Denver to bounce back. An 0-2 start against the Vegas Raiders and Washington Commanders can't happen. It's hard to fall as bad as they did under expectations last year, but they kind of are on the same track this year with the new look offense. You scored 33 today, but you got a Hail Mary. More of the same. It's disappointing stuff from Denver for me.
Yeah, I just want to say, shout out Brian Robinson. This guy last year got shot, came back, and now, I was big on him. Ask one guy, you can ask Brian. I planted my flag and thought this guy was going to be a dog, and today he showed. he carried this running back room a lot. I mean, in the past, and I think that's what's going to happen this year. Just Gibson isn't that what they thought he was going to be. So my big thing that I took away from this game was like Chase hit it on was the Scary Terry catch in the end zone, doubled coverage. Sam Howell put it on a dime. I mean, only he could make the play, and I mean he came down with it and caught it. I think that was a big plus for Sam Howell, showing the arm strength there. Then on the Denver side, I mean, kind of what Chase said, just you're rushing. The guy that led your team in rushing is Russell Wilson in this game. I mean, if you're going to beat a Commanders team, you got to get one of these running backs going. And I mean, Javonte Williams, definitely I was hyped on him last week saying he had a big game. Injury, I'm not seeing it. And then you've seen this performance out of the guy. So just to show, not to buy into the week one hype. And then, I did pick Denver. And ultimately, what happened today to my Chargers, I'm going to ultimately say what I said when I made this pick is let's go Broncos country to 0-2. I appreciate you. We still got a chance to, come in second place in this division. So I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, I think ultimately this came back to Russell Wilson just not being able to read the defenses again. He had some moments that showed vintage Russell Wilson, making some stuff happen down the field, but got sacked 7 times today. That Washington Commanders front was just getting after a man, and overall, looks like it's going to be a long season for Denver again, and Washington just exceeding expectations, man. Again, that defensive line is for real. We all knew it was, but they're kind of showing up right now, and good for them. And Sam Howell getting the dub, 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So that's a good thing to see if you're a Commanders fan for sure. But y'all have anything else before we wrap up?
Nah, just Denver has to clean it up on their side. The fumbles, interceptions, and the last thing I'll hit on, Bill Belichick, please get it done for me today. I appreciate you.
I'm gonna we're gonna finish up pretty quick here. Go ahead, Chase.
No, I was about to say I'm glad we're finishing up just in time to watch this Miami passing attack. I want to see how good Tua's 4-0 against Bill. Is it really going to continue, or has Bill got something for him in prime time? I'm excited to watch this one and talk about it Wednesday.
Yes, sir. I am too now. I'm going to get to it. I'll see you boys there.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Peace.